What up? What up? It's C Talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. We got a very special guest. C Talk's all about, building community and whatnot. Um, and it's also um, about, learning people's stories and building community through stories. So you never know what you might stumble upon when you're on C Talk. And so we have a very special guest. Before we get started, I like to, get all you know, the little cleaning out the way, the little business. Make sure you all sharing and you comment. I don't know if this really works. Maybe I might stop doing this. Y'all know to share and comment if you're in the YouTube universe. Make sure you subscribe. It's the best way to, for me, the easiest way I would say to support a Black business is just to tune in. You can just walk away, you know what I'm saying, and let the views do its work. Comment here or there. Hey, Logic, hi, guest, and then that's just a good way to support us on C Talk. But if you want to donate also, because this stuff ain't free, my premium subscription to StreamYard costs. So go ahead and cash at me. Give me the donation. I'm going to put the guest information in there. You can donate to her time and whatnot too. Venmo at Logic Amen. But with no further ado, we have a very special guest on, to hear their story and build community and whatnot. Just give it up. I want you to go ahead and introduce them and tell them who you be.
Thank you for that introduction. So my name is Ruzeda Fields, and I'm currently a software engineering student at an accelerated boot camp called Prescolas, and it's tuition free. And they're always looking for more students. So if you're interested in getting, they're not paying me to do this, but more about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a fashion designer. I have an African winter clothing line, and I started it because of my personal background. I was born in Tanzania and raised in America, well, particularly the Pacific Northwest. And growing up here, I've always wanted to express my African culture and heritage, but it's always cold here. Like right now, like why is it 50 degrees in September? Come on. But I wanted to solve that problem. Like I've been seeing people wear dashiki t-shirts over hoodies, and I just think that's really tacky. So what I ended up doing was I got some materials from Africa and decided to stitch that onto hoodies and sweatpants and make my own African printed Birkin bags and scarves and et cetera, et cetera. So you can feel comfortable repping your set in the Pacific Northwest or wherever you are in the world that's a little bit chilly, and also be functional and fashionable at the same time. So that's a little bit on me and what I'm currently up to in the world.
Yeah. Give it up. Give it up. Um, Make sure you guys are in the comments and whatnot, because people might be wondering, like, I mean, what's the topic? You know what I'm saying? What's the point? And I'll give you a little background because, C Talk is rooted in stories. So Rosetta and I were a part of the 50th anniversary of hip hop here in Seattle over the summer. Um, and we were part of the fashion show. I did spoken word, but she's the model and all that. She's the professional and all that. They had her walking down the aisle like 15, 16 times. They said, on Logic, we only need you to walk down about one time and you can do your little poetry. But Rosetta was and my son, what I'm saying, they was walking up and down like, hey, how come they get to walk 3 or 4 times? I only get to walk once and wear one outfit. But we were in the car and we were kind of talking about different things, and her and another sister were in the back and they were just talking about their shared experiences immigrating from Africa to America. And it's always like the elephant in the room when you talk about, what I'm saying, Black folks and Africans that immigrate from Africa, what I'm saying, to America, like their shared experiences, the similarities they have, the differences they have. And they just started talking about, their stories and experiences, immigrating from different parts of Africa, and I thought it would be dope to have a C talk talking about, just the immigrant, the experience coming to America, and to have her, share a story. She's very, very proud of Tanzania. She said it's very beautiful. Of course, I go back. It's very beautiful there, and she's very proud of it. So I just wanted you to, just talk about like where you're from in Tanzania, what was it like, and then when did you come to the United States?
Okay, so I'm from the biggest city in East Africa, which is called Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Mm.
And I was actually born in Africa with American citizenship. And that's usually not heard of because most people that think you need to be born in America to obtain citizenship or come here and get married or join the military to get citizenship. Not a lot of people are aware that you can be born outside of America and still have American citizenship. So I attained American citizenship because my father is an American. He is French Creole, born in Houston, Texas, raised in Seattle, Washington during the Civil Rights era, joined the military after the Navy. He read a National Geographic magazine, read an article on Tanzania, decided to fly to Tanzania, and while he was working out in the gym, he saw some yams on the treadmill, and now here I am.
That's how it
So I
happened.
moved
Want
to.
some yams, and here I am. That's how it happened. Come on, man.
That's exactly how that happened. That's my dad's side of the story. He said that thing was thinking. They got
Okay,
married. He paid the cows and the goats, and now here I am.
okay. Did they get married over in Africa?
Yes, I got married in Tanzania. I was born there, and I moved to Seattle when I was 2 years old. That was when Cash Money Records was taken over, and since that was so long ago, I can't tell you nothing about immigrating to America. I was 2 years old. I was just a toddler, and I'm half Black American. So I mean, I'm kind of point five immigrant, maybe. I don't know how that works.
So
But
so
as far
you don't
as
speak, so you don't speak any other languages,
so my first language is both Swahili and English.
right? So you were
And
learning
my mom,
English when you were learning English when you were in Tanzania.
I'm so no, I moved here when I was 2 years old. And my mom spoke English. My dad spoke English. My mom spoke Swahili. So I grew up in the household hearing two different languages. That's how that
So your
happened.
so your mom never learned English?
She she knows English. She's a nurse. She worked at the VA hospital.
Okay.
She's very proficient.
Yeah, so she's dual language. Yeah, you left that. You didn't mention that. So I just wanted to clarify that for the people viewing this and listening and whatnot. So you're saying that when you came here, you already were you speaking at 2 years old? A lot of us have a couple words in our vocabulary at 2 years old.
Okay, well, at 2 years old, I was definitely speaking.
Yeah.
I was from my parents' perspective and their stories. They say I was very advanced toddler. I don't have a lot of recollection, so I can't really confirm nor deny that information. But as far as I'm concerned, I grew up understanding both English and Swahili. So if somebody were to speak to me in Swahili, I don't know what they're saying. If they spoke to me in English, I don't know what they're saying.
Mhm. So So tell me about when you describe your
if that
identity.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So tell us a little bit about your identity. When you identified yourself, you say I'm half Black American. Explain what that means to you when you say you're half Black American.
Okay, so my father, who was born in Houston, Texas, he identifies as Black American. He doesn't identify as African American because from his words, he was not born in Africa. He can't trace what tribe in Africa he's from. He says he's uh lived and visited all over Africa, and he has not seen one person that looks like him.
Mm,
So that's his words, and that's how he feels. And
yeah.
so he claims being Black American, and to me that makes sense. He's black, a Black person that was born and raised in America. Um, and I also claim that I'm half Black American and half East African.
Mhm. What I'm
So when
saying
I
is,
identify myself, oh, you asked me my self identification. So I just say I'm Black. And if anybody wants any clarity, then I'll ask them how much time you have. Because I could either break it down to like the tribes and regions, or I could just give you a brief like my dad's French Creole, my mom's from Tanzania.
mhm. So I think a lot of people might be asking, why not just Black African? Because Black is a prefix, Black is an ethnicity, and African and American are both nationalities. Why not just Black African? Or there are Black people all over the world. Why not use the prefix Black African?
I just say Black. It just covers all bases.
Mm,
Um, and it just fits for both nationalities, and I just claim both nationalities. So for me, it's whatever is convenient at the moment. Sometimes I'm American, sometimes I'm African.
mm.
But all the time I'm Black.
Yeah. I
So
see
that's
that.
just how I, yeah.
Now I've been to Africa a couple of times. I've been to Ghana twice, went to West Africa. I've also been to different places, in what some people based on their scholarship have called the African diaspora. So Haiti would also be a part of the African diaspora because that was one of the places that some scholars say that African enslaved people were brought. And I've also been to Jamaica, and they were brought there also. But there's also been places like I've been in Central America, like Mexico, where there were Africans that have evidence they've been there too. If you look at the Olmec statues and whatnot. And when I was doing my tour in Cancun to the pyramids, like, um, and this has been common for other people who've gone on, different tours with different tour guides. The tour guide will talk
Mhm.
about how there is evidence that Africans actually came here. And so we know that through scholarship that not all Africans were or Black folks in America were brought here on slave ships. A lot of them were here before. They say they came from Mali. There's some evidence that they came here. Um, I think in 311. Um, but the reason why I bring that up is when I went to Africa and I was in Ghana. You over here, and I consider myself sorry, a Pan-Africanist, and I look at all the, Black people all over the world, wherever we've gone, what I'm saying? And I do bear witness to one of the theories. There's many different theories, but what the main theory that Africa is the root of civilization and it started there, and we just kind of we branched out and we migrated, to other places on the globe. But that's the epicenter of life. That's where they have the oldest remnants of human being in Ethiopia, which they call Lucy. Charles Leakey found it. The point I'm trying to make is you're all like, you're pro-black, you're pro-African, and then you step on the soil, and Ghanaians are so proud to be African. They're speaking Twi, they're speaking the colonizers' language, they're speaking the tribal languages, they're introducing you to things. And it's like, it's really humbling because you're like, man, I still saw myself as an African because I saw a lot of people that, you know what I'm saying, look like me. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will be like, man, you know, welcome home, brother. You know what I'm saying? Um, but it was like I had to sit back and be proud of what Black folks and Africans in America had created and allow them, you know what I'm saying, to sit in their little lane and me sit in my little lane because they're all little lanes and the world is the biggest lane. But I felt kind of different, you know, I'm sitting there being so proud to be, you know, African with my dashiki on and stuff like that. I wanted to be so proud of what we created in America, like they were so proud of what they created um, in Africa. I say all that to say this: it's like, what is your relationship with Africa in terms of, you know, living in America now since you were two? Do you like, what's your relationship with Tanzania? Like, your pride and how's your honor? Because you've been an American citizen more than you've been an African citizen.
Well, I've never been an African citizen, so
I thought you
I'll
were born in
start
Africa.
there.
Well, you know what I mean.
I
I mean,
was.
you were born in Africa, so you've been in. Okay, let me change my language. You were. I thought you may have had dual citizenship. I thought you may have had dual
Tanzania
citizenship.
does Tanzania doesn't allow that. They're
Okay,
like you're either Tanzanian or not.
so you've
So
spent
I can
more
become
time,
a Tanzanian.
right?
I
So you've
can
been
become a Tanzanian citizen if I wanted to. I just have to denounce my American citizenship first in order to do that. But I won't do that because just traveling internationally with my mother when she wasn't an American citizen yet, it was just difficult for her to like just gain entry into different countries. Like they made it a lot harder for her than it was for me. Like for an example, I was 12 years old. We went to Zurich, Switzerland, and was able to run around Switzerland freely as an American citizen, but since my mom was still a Tanzanian citizen, she was not able to do that. So I'm going to keep my American citizenship for as long as it's convenient for me. and but other than that, like my relationship with Africa is very strong. Like I very much rep Africa at all times, and most people that I hang around and associate myself with tend to forget that I'm also a Black American. So I definitely resonate with the pride and the culture, and I do go back and I spend a lot of time there when I do go back. The last time I was in Tanzania was in 2015, but that wasn't the last time I was in Africa. The last time I was in Africa was in Malawi, and I was there for a year from 2018 to 2019. And it's always warm welcomes. It's never a bad experience unless I just was negligent and didn't uh, boil the tap water first, or I didn't take the anti-malaria medication or something like that. There's always pros and cons to anywhere you go to, but I definitely plan on living in Africa in the future, but also living in America as well. Like I want to be living in Africa during summer, during September, October, November, December, February, and then when it starts warming up again over here, come back. So have one foot there, one foot here, and when I start reproducing, I want them to know both cultures and both lands and everything like that. So
Yeah, because
yeah.
you know Seattle got the best summers. You know what I'm saying? I live by that. So what kind of response do you get when I don't I want to choose my words carefully. You know, got to spare me a little bit. I might not be as articulate as you want me to be. I'm just going to say, when you go back home, I know, do you still see Tanzania as home, right? You were born there.
I see both places as home.
Right. So
Um,
when you go to one of your homes, your first home in Tanzania,
mhm,
what's the response
mhm.
like from the native people? How do they respond to you?
To me personally, it's not going to be the same for other people.
Yeah.
But me personally, because not only like I come from royalty, so my grandfather, he's the chief of his tribe, so
Mm,
he's a very well known man, and I'm the oldest grandchild, so I just automatically have respect. And then also like the everybody else, they just look at me as an American. Like they see me, they just can tell I'm American or came from
how
America.
can they tell you're an American? How can they pick you out? As soon as you open your mouth, how you walk, how you dress? Because for me, I can still hear an accent. I can still hear like your Swahili tongue. I can hear it a lot. It sounds dope.
Thank you. And it's funny, because Africans, they tell me that they don't hear an accent at all,
I can hear it.
but
Yeah, I
then
can definitely.
Americans, they
Yeah.
um, but the same way you can tell that somebody's not from Seattle, they're from New York. Or the same way you can tell somebody's not from America or from Mexico or whatever. Like you can just, if you grew up in a certain location, you can just see by the way they walk, the way they smell, the way they talk, just everything about them. Or probably just the simple fact you've never seen them before, and you just know that they're not from there, or they spent a lot of time abroad.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
When I went back home, when I go back home to like Cincinnati, the first time I went back home after being in Seattle, they was like, "Oh man, you sound like a white boy. You know, you speaking all that proper English and stuff." Because my Midwestern, little accent, which is pretty much like the upper South, we sound real country in Cincinnati. It had kind of worn off and whatnot. But you are right. Like when I walk around Seattle, they think I'm from New York, or they think I'm from the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? By how I talk, how I dress, how I carry myself, and just I guess it's just like
Hmm.
my viewpoints and stuff. So it's just kind of interesting because the way that people
Hmm.
talk, but also the way they process information is just categorically different. You know what I'm saying? In Cincinnati, they just process stuff differently. Um, Maybe that's the reason why Ohio is a Trump state, because they just look at things, differently. You know what I'm saying? What was it like growing up in the schools? Do you think that the children, even though you came here when you were 2 years old, how did they respond to you?
Okay,
Just growing
well,
in
I
elementary
did go to
school.
high school in Tanzania. I
Oh,
went
you
to
went to
high.
high
I
school.
don't. I can't say anything about elementary school. I spent elementary school entirely in America. I spent my first several years of high school in America, and I spent the last year of high school in Tanzania. And the way they received me, it was fine. I mean, it was just like any other school, except there's like uniform. But there's a lot of schools in America that wear uniform too. Um, and I mean, it's just like it's just any other kids. Really, it's just these kids. They speak more than one language. That's all. That's the only difference. And we're in a different continent in a different country. But I mean, I can't really say like a there's no distinctive difference. I've been to 12 different schools my whole life. They're all very similar. Whether it doesn't matter what the demographics are, they're all pretty much the same. It's just they're all kids, and kids are gonna be kids. Like some of them are gonna be mean, some of them are gonna be nice, some of them are gonna bully you, some of them are gonna protect you. It's all the same no matter where you go. So
Yeah, one of the biggest things I noticed traveling abroad to Africa, and then also I saw the similar things in China, is just the way they approach education, especially like in Ghana
Mm,
when I went to Accra. Like the kids are learning stuff like in second and third grade that high schoolers are learning. There were kids in like China in sixth and seventh grade learning how to make an app. Yeah, one of their classroom assignments was to make an app. So it's like I definitely understand what you're saying. Like when I went to Africa, kids off jump speak three different language: French, English, and like their tribal tongue,
mm-hmm.
which
In
like
Tanzania, when I go in Tanzania, mm-hmm. In Tanzanian high school, they're learning economics, they're learning business, they're learning like college subjects in high school.
yeah,
So that's the only distinctive difference. And then also, like the teachers will just show up to school whenever they feel like it.
what do you
But
think?
the students have to be in class on time every day.
Yeah, yeah, I always think it's interesting as being an educator. I always think it's interesting when I hear people say, well, all these immigrants coming from all over the world are taking our jobs. And and as an educator, I want to say to each and every one of those people that say that, you shouldn't blame people immigrating from a different country for taking your job. You should blame your school system that does not make you competitive as other people in the world. Because they come in here and they have advanced degrees or they have an advanced education, is because our education system is quite frankly inferior. America's known for having an advanced pop culture and an advanced military. But when it comes to an education system, not so much. Um, Speaking of that, that rivalry and sometimes social conflict that they have, you hear people saying immigrants are taking people's jobs. We hear stuff from like Black Americans say things like, well, those Africans really don't like us. And I always think that's kind of funny because I'm like, what Africans are you hanging around? I just don't hang around those Africans. Like, what are your thoughts when you hear about the conflict between Africans that immigrate to America and Black people that are native to America?
Okay. Well, I can't speak on the whole continent and all 56 countries. I can only speak on Tanzania.
Absolutely. Every question is about your experience and no one else's. I just want you to speak for yourself. What do you think?
Okay, well, as far as immigrants, I'll answer in two parts because you asked two different questions. So, as far as the immigrants taking their jobs, I feel like that's propaganda. Um, I've seen some statistics that show that Americans aren't even applying for the jobs.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I feel like there's always two sides to every coin. So, I think you should apply yourself. It's all a competition. We all want better in life. Go get it. Go grab it. Don't sit around and bitch and complain. Just go get it. Go do something about it. If you can't do something about it, don't trip. It's out of your control. Move on. Go worry about something that is in your control. Go get some professional development. Go learn you something and go get a job. Stop blaming everybody else for your situation. Is your life. You write it. You're in control of the pen. Immigrants are just coming here to get a better life. And if they get it before you and you've been sitting here the whole time, I don't know, just figure it out. If it's the government's problem, there's always loopholes and everything. Find that loophole, get in where you can fit in, and keep it pushing. And as far as Africans don't like Black Americans, also fake news, propaganda. Okay, well, I can't speak for everybody. I have heard some Africans say some distasteful things about Black Americans, but It is not their personal words, really. It is what was told to them. Like I learned from West Africans that before they come here, they are taught not to deal with Black Americans and the white people that they're working with or in schools with, are telling them to differentiate themselves from them, um, and feeding them all the negativity. So then they come up with a preconceived notion, and then they are in these neighborhoods where they just so happen to uh, come across confirmation bias. So then it keeps perpetuating this propaganda, and I don't like it because it feels like a division between one half of me versus the other half of me, and it's very draining for me. I hate it. I don't like it. As far as Tanzanians go, we don't ridicule anybody. We are very welcoming people. We've always had a Pan African political stance, um, and that's just how we are. Like, we're very welcoming to the African diaspora and anybody who comes and visits Tanzania. And Tanzanians don't really do a whole lot of traveling. It's too beautiful to leave. We don't got no conflict. We don't got no terrorists. We don't got no rebels. We don't got no beef with no other countries. It's a
Well,
very
according
peaceful.
according to your family, your mother, all it takes is for a person from Tanzania to meet a black man or a black person from Texas, and they be gone. They'll be, they gonna leave all that. See, I'm going to Texas.
No, my dad applied major pressure. I didn't finish the
Yeah,
full
yeah.
because apparently my
We know what kind of, according to your story, we know what kind of pressure he applied, and she came in more ways than one. Okay, anyways, um, so it's interesting to hear you. It's so much to unpack because you said a lot. So it's interesting to hear you say the black folks that are saying that immigrants are taking their jobs. They just need to do the professional development. They need to stop. That's fake news. It's propaganda. Blah blah blah. What would you say to the black person that says, that we have different experiences as a black person who has, ancestors that survived through not only chattel slavery, but also state sanctioned apartheid, which was Jim Crow, which also the black codes. So we have a legacy of oppression that has followed us, not only through laws and racist institutions, it's been institutionalized, but also through epigenetics, actually through, what I'm saying, our genetic code, the stress has been passed down. There's so much studies to back up what I'm saying. So when it comes to like, well, just get a job or something like that, we have two different kinds of PTSD. Like an African coming from Africa might be, fleeing, their country, what I'm saying, for more resources or whatnot. That's a different kind of PTSD, because the PTSD that we have is post-traumatic slave disorder, which teaches us to hate each other, things of that nature. And I'm sure some of that stuff is common, what I'm saying, because colonialism is all over the world. But what would you say to a black person who, unpacked it like that? Is like, it's not as easy to say, oh, just go to school, get some professional development, because we're being haunted by, what I'm saying, a legacy of institutional racism and genetic oppression.
okay. Well, I sympathize with the disenfranchisement of African Americans. My grandfather was, in fact, a Black Panther Seattle chapter. Um, Power to the people. Um, so I'm not necessarily speaking out of ignorance. I just don't necessarily like. I understand like there's a lot of hurdles that are specifically placed for the adults people versus immigrants. I understand that it's all systematic. Um, I guess I just don't necessarily believe in excuses. Like it's not an excuse, but it's also an excuse. at the same time, if you understand my drift, like I understand, but white man is preventing you from doing stuff. Okay, that's I get it, but figure out how to still do it. I don't know how else to say it, but I mean, might come off insensitive, but I mean, for me, I'm a more of a logical person. Just do it. Like, don't let people get in your way. Like, be Nat Turner. So, like, just do something to where you can still do it.
You
Like,
said be Nat Turner. You do realize Nat Turner was not successful.
yeah,
He definitely was murdered. He was definitely not successful. Actually, Harriet Tubman was more successful than him, but she had to join the United States military and the government to be more successful than him. I understand what you're saying. I mean, the way you're looking at it, the reason why I posed that background and contextual information is because I feel like the way a lot of people look at it that way is because um I mean, and I'm glad that you kind of retracted the word excuses, because when something is genetically, is when you have a genetic disposition, meaning like if you see one thing and I see one thing, but um my hormonal and stress response is just totally different based on genetic code that was passed on from my ancestors. That's not an excuse. It's an actual literal, you know what I'm saying, biological response to physical stimulus. Like
mm-hmm,
there's something going on with the amygdala part of my brain. There's a certain part of my body that releases more cortisol than, other people who haven't had a shared experience. That's why I brought up epigenetics. It's very fascinating to just learn how much stress and the response to certain stimulus is passed down. You know what I'm saying? And that's because the enslaver was very, 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 very intelligent, because they had plantations where they, had us picking cotton, indigo, tobacco, but they also had plantations totally dedicated to the breeding of human beings, in
mm-hmm,
which they would actually breed human beings like they breeded livestock. And they
mm-hmm,
would train us the same way they would train a horse, plant
mm-hmm,
fear into that horse, and or the whatever, or a dog or whatever, and it'll be transferred to the offspring. And that's what they were doing to us.
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? And so it's just really fascinating stuff when you dive into it. That's why I wanted to ask you another question. When
mm-hmm.
you were going to school in Africa, how much did they teach you about the transatlantic slave trade? Because I've heard different stories and it's always fascinating. I hear from some people from like Ghana and Africa. It's like, what? They put you all on boats, or some people don't say it didn't happen. And there's a whole scholarship that says that whole story is a lie too. There's people out there that literally say that we weren't put on boats, and if we were put on boats, it wasn't nowhere near in the millions. It was only like in the thousands or something like that. And that there were black people who owned those boats too. There's also that story. Some people will tell you that Christopher Columbus was a Moor. He was actually a black man, an African. I don't know. I don't know. I know there's actual stories from enslaved people, you know what I'm saying? Like Cujo, who started the first Africa town in Alabama. He talks about how he was taken by the Dahomey tribe, you know what I'm saying, and put on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
He was the last surviving um, enslaved person who was interviewed by Zora Neale Hurston. So we know that these things are true. Phyllis Wheatley, that wasn't her original African name. She talks about being on a slave ship. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So what did they teach you when in your schooling? You said you went to school, high school there.
Mm-hmm.
What did they teach you about the transatlantic slave trade, if they did?
Okay. Well, they did not. Well, I was in high school when I went, and that was not part of the curriculum when I was there.
Mm,
But I did teach people about the transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery to just the people in the neighborhood, because some people never heard about it. They had no idea. They literally told me that they had no clue how black people got to America. They just thought that they just showed up there one day. And some people, they heard about it in school or whatever, but it was just taught at like indentured servitude, and not to the level and gruesomeness and ruthlessness that chattel slavery was. So I had to educate them on that, and so they can understand better. I had to educate them on racism and police brutality and microaggressions and the homeless epidemic and all of that that's actually going on in America, because they have no clue. They don't know anything about America. They just see Chris Brown and Barack Obama and Beyonce, and that's it. They think you just show up to America and then you're just rolling in dough. They think everybody has a lot of money. And when I was going back to visit, like, you must come with gifts. And people were asking me for iPhones. And I didn't have an iPhone myself at the time. I'm like, how am I supposed to be able to afford an iPhone for you just as a gift? Like, they're asking for Levi's, they're asking for Mac makeup. I'm like, this is all expensive stuff. And you guys just think money just falls off a tree. And that's not how that works here in America. And I just wanted to make a quick comment on your earlier statement. Um, I understand the generational curse of it all. I just believe that, like, you just must stand up and say this curse stops here, because I don't really, like, I understand, like, it's all embedded, y'all, stress and all this and that. I think the first step is recognizing it, and then you need to, like, do something about it and say, hey, I'm not gonna let this stop me, and then just keep moving forward. Like, this is what happened to you. It's not your fault. I understand you got trauma, and that could be a hurdle, but it shouldn't be a deciding factor for why you can't be successful. It's going to make it more difficult for you to acquire that success, which is completely understandable. And I sympathize with that. But I just don't believe in stagnation and allowing it to just be like, oh, well, the white man won't let me get rich. So I'm going to just not do anything about it, and I'm gonna just not try. Like, I respect people that actually try and at least do something about it and keep moving forward and don't let nothing get in their way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. To add on to what you said, I look at like people who are the descendants of institutional racism and just basically genetic, oppression that's
Mm-hmm.
passed, through to the offspring. I look at it like something like diabetes. Like everyone in your family could have diabetes, but some people may be able to have the resources and the strength, because strength is a resource, and the education, which is another resource, to put it in remission. And but you also have some family members that um, are looking at getting their foot amputated because their blood sugar is so out of control, and then they need to get insulin. But we all got diabetes.
But just to piggyback on that diabetes thing, I was just telling my cousin the other day. She's my cousin on my Black American side. And diabetes does run in my family. But to me, I don't believe diseases run in the family at all. I think diets run in the family, and those diets create those diseases. Habits is what run in the family. So you got to recognize it, like, okay, this is a habit. Do I want to continue this perpetual cycle, or do I want to say this stops here and just be vegan or pescatarian and stop frying stuff in Crisco? Like,
I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, there's some truth there. I think that's a highly conflated. and simplified version of it. I think people's blood type, no matter what you eat, has a lot. I know that for me, I have a condition with my blood that's called congenital
Mm-hmm.
sucrose intolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So the older I've gotten, I'm more intolerant to even sugar, not just cane sugar, but any kind of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
The point I'm trying to make is you can say I can eat like I could eat no cane sugar, feel me? But I
Mm-hmm.
can eat grapes, cantaloupe, mangoes,
Natural sugars.
natural sugars, and I'll still be messed up. Like a
Oh.
like a person who like I'll get bloated, I'll have diarrhea, I'll get very,
Oh.
very tired, like a person who's eating dirty. That's what I'm saying. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also that's why I feel like diabetes is a very good analogy. It's because it's not always about what you eat, it's also the conditions of your circumstances. Like
Mm-hmm.
stress can make diabetes flare up, or other autoimmune diseases like lupus, like alopecia. You can eat good, man. But if you got a really stressful job, you might wake up one day and have patches of your hair falling out, or
And
your
stress,
eyebrows
number one killer.
or your blood type might not be meshing with the food you eat. When I did my blood type thing, I went to Dossier, and it's a shout out because I think more Black people need to invest in their health. You can spend $159, and if you have the right flex, plan with your health care, you can actually get that paid off. You know what I'm saying? So look
Mm-hmm.
into the benefits you have. The point I'm trying to make is one of the first things I did, I dropped $200. They ran my blood, and then they gave me a list of foods based on my O positive blood type that I should be eating and not be eating, based on my goal of wanting to clean up my leaky gut. We all have leaky gut. The point is, on my list of things that I needed to stop eating to clean up my gut was stuff like ginger, like salmon, like tomatoes, like stuff that's high in vitamin C. It's not good for me because of my blood type. The
Mm-hmm.
point I'm trying to make is I had to stop eating those things, clean up my system, and then reintroduce them to my system to see how it's gonna. I'm still playing around with stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like I understand what you're saying, um, and I will say I'm in a position of privilege because I am educated. My parents were educated. Um,
Mm-hmm.
to look at racism like that, I'm in a situation for me that does work for me. I know I can just think at it a different way, and I can overcome my PTSD triggers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm not overlooking anything. That's just blatant racism.
Mm-hmm.
When one of my white colleagues say the same thing I say, and they're looked at as something positive, and I'm looked at as aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
word. It's
Yeah,
like almost every single day I go to work, I feel like they're trying to find out a way to blame the Black guy.
that's true.
I gotta try. I gotta work twice as hard just to make it half as far. Sometimes I feel like that's what my grandmother used to always tell me, who was an educator for over 30 years. So I come from not only a family history of PTSD, but I also come from a family history of privilege too.
Mm-hmm.
Very educated people, and we
Mm-hmm.
own land. You know what I'm saying? In Alabama, that's where our Genesis story comes from. You know what I'm saying? So I have land coming to me once my father passes away, like acres. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So it brings me to my next question: like, what did your like? And we got about 10 more minutes. I would love to hear like the intersection and the different, stories that your parents told you. Like, I want to start with your father. Like, what did your father tell you about his family history? Because he says he doesn't claim Africa. His family's not from Africa. So what's the Genesis story that your family tells you, that your father tells you about his family?
Yeah, so good question. My dad actually has a family tree that dates back to 1000 AD, and he did his research. Um,
Man,
yeah, so my dad was born in Houston, Texas. His dad was born in Houston, Texas, and my grandfather was a Black Panther. My grandmother was born in Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is the first city in Louisiana, and she was a librarian. And she was a librarian at South Seattle College. I'm third generation at South Seattle College. So my family is also educated as well. My father is he owns a renewable energy company in Africa. So that's what he's doing to generate income while he's overseas. He's a military veteran. He has a master's degree in aerospace engineering. He also has a master's degree in robotics and micro robotics and computer science. And my mother, she is a registered nurse, and I am a software engineer student. So, as far as my dad's history, he's saying that we are Negro Indians and we are Cherokee, Choctaw, and Chickasaw. My name, Ruzeda, is a Chickasaw name. I'm named after my great grandmother, Ruzeda Johnson. She was a sharecropper. And yeah, what my dad has discovered about her last name. My last name is Fields, not because I worked in the fields or my ancestors worked in the fields. That's what a lot of people try to joke and claim to say or whatever. Um, but apparently, the last name Fields comes from England, and it originally actually came from France with uh, a duke named Count de la Felde, and that is my ancestor from 1000 AD. Um, so I don't know how he
That's that.
was.
You know what? You know what? That's dope history. I
Mhm.
wonder why your father traces the 1000 AD back to Europe and not back to Africa. Because
Personally, I think he has some kind of internalized hatred towards Africans, and I'm not necessarily sure what that is and why. I'm just repeating his words. That's all I'm
no, I
doing.
hear you. No, I hear you. So the reason why I say that is that it okay when you're studying any like as a scholar, one of the people might think this is kind of different or kind of weird. The first thing you look if you're a really good scholar, you want to look at holes in your scholarship. So you want to look and say, what's like the holes in it, like the flaws in my theory. And so I would wonder, like, why trace your history back all the way back to Europe with the colonizer, but you didn't seem like you did it on the other side. You know what I'm saying? With them, like, where did those black people come from? Are you talking about at one point everything came out of, like black folks originally came out of from America? Or maybe it's the theory of plate tectonics that America, South America fits perfectly into West Africa. And it was all once at one time. And then there was some kind of, earth catastrophe that separated the two. But at some point, you got to, like, what is the genesis? I would love to hear what's the genesis of black folks in America, that we just came from America. That might be true. I've heard
he
that theory.
he
You know what I'm saying?
believes that we're Moors,
Yeah, but the Moors came from, what I'm saying? They came from Africa though.
and then he believes that he's not from Africa. He's a Hebrew Israelite. I don't know,
Okay,
man.
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Don't.
No, I've heard this before. No, a lot of my good friends, one in particular, Doug Wren L. He's a more science temple. Shout out to Noble Jew Ali. And he says that all the places that they're talking about in the Bible, that they were really talking about places in America. Actually, America is actually named after a black person. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
true. And
Same with
Africa was
California.
named after a white person.
Yeah. So same with California is named after a black queen,
Yes, she
or
was
empress.
Queen
So,
Khalifa.
so, but my thing is this: I don't understand why black folks, because I still want to hear what your mother teaches you. about the history in Tanzania. I just don't know why Black folks can't say that we are the mothers and fathers of the global community, and everywhere in the world is our home. We come from everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
That's what my mother teaches me. Well, she specifically believes that Tanzania, not Ethiopia, she believes it was Tanzania that is the birthplace of civilization, and Olduvai Gorge. I did read it somewhere in some kind of book. I don't remember which book it was. I had a Samoan friend that read a similar book and saw a sentence, took a picture, sent it to me, and was like, you're the prototype of mankind. I'm like, okay, cool.
But you know, when we say things like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Egypt, those are the geopolitical boundaries that were made by the colonizer. So back in the day, it was just an area. It was just, you know what I'm saying?
That's true. So yeah, my mom, I don't know, like, she just says it was Tanzania, and she believes that Tanzania was actually the Garden of Eden. And that makes sense because when you read about the Garden of Eden, they had all the fruits, all the vegetables, all the animals. And according to statistics, Tanzania has the most animals, has the most species and subspecies of animals and vegetation in the world. So it had to be somewhere around Tanzania, Kenya, that, the Garden of Eden what took place. And
if that story is historically accurate. I think it's a creation. I think it's a creation story.
Yeah, it's all
Africans and Native American, Aboriginal people all over the world have creation stories of how the world was created.
That's true.
You know,
it says in the Bible it's all an allegory.
Yeah, and I think I just really want us to get to the point where we're all people of the sun. The thing we have in common is that we get energy, we get food, we get medicine from the sun. And just like a plant, the plant might have chlorophyll through the process of photosynthesis, and we have melanin. You know what I'm saying? And we work just like walking, living, breathing plants that create civilizations.
We're literally just plants with complicated emotions.
Absolutely. That's why I think it's always crazy when vegans get on their soapbox and be like, you should not be eating animals because it's cruel. They have feelings. I'm like, I can show you a whole bunch of articles that tell you that plants have feelings. They actually move towards your voice.
They scream.
All that. Yeah, all that. So I don't know what you're talking about. Actually, plants actually have STDs and all that.
Oh yeah, there was a hepatitis situation with Walmart frozen fruits.
Well, bees are the culprits for plant STDs. When they pollinate many different plants, they'll take the pollen from one plant, transfer it to the other. Boom! It'll be foreign bacteria to that plant, and which creates an STD for plants.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I learn something new every day.
True facts. All this stuff is Googleable. Please don't take my word for on face value. When you watch Seed Talk, stuff that make your seeds walk, we're here to plant seeds, and that means go out and hold me to it. If I'm wrong about something, put it in the comments. Please put it in the comments. Hold me to it. Hey, this has been a dope interview and conversation. I would love to do a part 2. But to close out this one, she said, I don't know, man.
I wasn't sure if you was waiting for a response right now or later.
No, hey,
I'm definitely down for a part 2. I like to talk and share.
Yeah, you're very intelligent. I don't got my little noisemaker. I'd hit the applause. I'd hit the explosion.
Like Kevin Samuels.
Yeah. Whoa,
He
whoa.
got all the sounds. I'm not comparing you to him, but he got all the little sounds on his thing. So that's all I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Rest in peace to Kevin Samuels, man.
Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
take the best part of every black person, man. I definitely
Yeah.
take the best part. He was hilarious. But also before I'm gonna hold you to this too, we still gotta get that skit going between you and my son, man. Let me direct it, let me write it out. Be awesome because you got the perfect personality for it. You be cracking me up. Hey, before we get off to, you got to tell people how to get a hold of you because your post and your Instagram and your Facebook are hilarious. You be cracking me up. But anyways, little something we do on C Talk is we do a plan of action, and we take about we take what we talked about in the episode, and then we come about like, okay, everything we talked about, if you could just break it down, like what would be your plan of action? And my plan of action would be is to if you have any questions about the immigrant experience, um, don't let stereotypes and pop culture educate you. I say have a conversation with a person, who has that experience, and not just interview one person, but multiple people, and make it a priority to make those conversations be your teacher and your educator instead of stereotypes and stigmas and in pop culture. So that's my plan of action and your homework. What's your plan of action based on what we talked about in your homework, if you have one?
I would definitely have to agree. I would definitely say like definitely talk to somebody, but if you can't, you might be in Butte, Montana or something. You can't find you can't find that one Nigerian, then it's fine. Just go on YouTube or message me on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I'm free. Well, not free. I got a lot of stuff to do. But I will respond back within a week. And answer your questions, and I'm open to talk to anybody, and just I'm very honest and just an open book. So yeah, if you have any questions, you could talk to me. I could point you to anybody else. I know at least one person from almost every country in Africa. I try to make it a point to like speak to at least somebody from a whole nother country, and I definitely encourage that for other people. Don't be ignorant. Get a passport. Don't buy those Jordans. Leave the country and go experience something, because it's nothing like actually going to that country. Like you could watch videos on it all day long, but it's not going to be nothing like actually visiting there. And don't assume that anywhere is just like where you're at, because it's not. I promise you, it's everybody's different. Every location is completely different. Every experience is different. And just because one person had a bad experience with Ghana or Nigeria or whatever, don't mean you will. So just go and don't wait on nobody to go with you. That's my
Yeah,
action.
that's dope. Hey, how can they get in contact with you on Instagram and whatnot and Facebook? What's your
Okay, so
Instagram?
my Instagram is IG with Ruzeda Fields. So IG with RUZEDA FIELDS. And then my TikTok is Ruzeda Fields. My Instagram is Ruzeda Antoinette Fields. So on all social media platforms, it's my name. And on TikTok, I primarily talk about software engineering and my journey through tech. On Instagram, it's mostly my modeling and also tech experiences as well. And Facebook is all just for comedy sake and just to talk and commune.
Tell me your Facebook real quick again, because we're gonna be on Facebook. We're on Facebook right now. So what's your Facebook again?
My Facebook is Ruzeda, RUZEDA, middle name Antoinette, ANTOINETTE, last name Fields, FIELDS.
Okay. All right, check her out on Instagram and on Facebook and whatnot. This has been C Talk. And let's do a part two. Let's schedule it. Talk to
All
you soon.
right.
We out.